Hi there. This episode is only possible because of your support on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and consider kicking us a couple of bucks a month if you like our shows. Here is a small programming note. The next episode, before we get to the Wastelands, is going to be about the Stephen King book Rose Matter, which is connected to the Dark Tower series. I really like doing these off-season kind of things. Go and check that out. If you're going to buy it, consider using the link at Duckfeed.tv/tipjar. We get a small cut of whatever you buy there. Also, there's a content warning on that. It is a book that is about domestic violence, so that is going to be something that will mess up your day. Consider, either skipping that book or skipping that episode. I just want you to know before you go diving into it, because it's rough. Welcome to Radio Free Midworld, a podcast about the Dark Tower series of books. My name is Cole Ross, and I am your host, and today I'm joined by Jeremy Greer.
Hello.
And by Sean Wagoner. Hey, Sean.
Hello.
Yeah. And we're here to talk about the very end of the Drawing of the Three. This is the Pusher Part 2, a very exciting, very action-packed chapter. I don't know how long this episode is going to be, because
it's a pretty short couple of chapters.
it seriously is, and it moves by. And the page count is up there, but it is mostly action, and it's mostly kind of all of the threads coming together. Sean, introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from.
All right. Well, if may know me from Souls, I guess, as it were, as far as interaction with the internet, and probably at the Lore Hunter on Twitter is probably where you know me from. I just do a lot of Bloodborne lore stuff, and I would do Dark Souls 3 lore, but there is none. So
yeah, we're referring to the Dark Souls series of games. If anybody listens to this and not something else, Sean is another lorester here, like us. Tell me about your history with the series, Sean.
All right, so I'm pretty new as far as I came to the series just a few years ago, and I actually it was actually on a tip of, I think it was an off season for Bonfire Side Chat, and I asked what are some other Souls, sort of like things that tap into similar themes as Dark Souls, and actually you recommended the Dark Tower, so I was like, okay, I'll check out the Dark Tower. And I read the Gunslinger a few years ago, and I liked it. But I got to the end, and I think you guys mentioned in the episode, but the end gets real weird, and it kind of threw me in a way where I enjoyed the book, but with that whole like universe and Blade of Grass thing, I didn't have the impetus to actually start the next book. Yeah. And it wasn't until this last fall where I decided to pick up the Drawing of the Three, because I heard like the movie was actually in production. I was like, I should return to that, see what that's all about. And I hit the Drawing of the Three, and I got really obsessed with it for a few weeks. I had the audiobooks and the books, and when I was at work, I'd listen to the audiobook, and then I'd find my place in the physical book and come home and read the books. So I did that, and I finished the entire series in less than 2 weeks, and then I just picked up the comics and kept going from there.
You double-fisted it. God. Yeah, it took me just doing an audio, like an audio-only listen on the books after the show got funded. It took me like a month. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I got really worried about it, to the point where like I was reading, I think it was The Wastelands, and I had to take out the trash. So I went from reading, and I found just to take out the trash, which is like a 2-minute walk, right. Maybe. And I decided to throw on the audiobook while I was walking to take out the trash. So yeah. So I was really invested.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't do that with podcasts, but there's no there's no cross-referencing and finding stuff involved in that.
So yeah.
Do you have a favorite book in the series?
It's kind of interesting coming back around, because I would have said after my first read through that The Wastelands was probably my favorite, and that's due to, I think, my favorite antagonist in the series. And but coming through here, the Drawing of the Three is actually it might be my favorite now, just because I think it's the funniest of all the books. And this section in particular, coming back through, I think it's just like, I don't know, there's so much going on, but it's so entertaining at the same time, where I think it gets more ridiculous, but also more serious later in the series. Yeah. And I think I think between the Wastelands and the Drawing of the Three are probably my favorites.
Yeah. That's a sentiment I can agree with.
I've read the first 3 books since the show has started, since this podcast has started. And because as soon as I finished the Drawing of the Three, I immediately went into the Wastelands. I could not help myself. And so far, out of my latest reread, the Wastelands is by far my favorite. Like, for as much fun as I think this book is, the Wastelands is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very excited for that season. Yeah, and we're going to end that, and we're going to take a little break and talk about some related work. So we're going to simulate the cliffhanger on that one. Spoiler: that one ends on a very infamous cliffhanger.
Oh man!
Yeah, I'm glad I had the next book available when I read through that, because man, I cannot imagine what people went through just reading it as it was coming out.
Yeah, waiting 6 years. Yeah. Yeah.
It was, I can tell you, it was super, super miserable. That book 4 was the first book that I've ever pre-ordered, and that I ever, like, what time are you opening? I will be there. Like, I worked at the mall that the store opened. Like, I was on pins and needles to get that book because I'd been waiting for so long.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So we're jumping the gun on that just a little bit. I'm happy that we're excited about that because the Wasteland is coming up, but we have to finish this book itself. So last time we found the third door, and Roland went into the mind of Jack Mort, a serial killer active in New York in the 1970s. He actually jumps into his mind right at the moment when Mort is about to push Jake himself. Jake being the young boy companion from the first book who Roland lets die. And so Roland digs around in his memories and finds out that not only was Mort responsible years and years ago for the injury that birthed Detta Walker, Odetta Holmes's kind of evil split personality, but also is responsible for Odetta losing her legs as well. And while all this is happening back on the beach, Detta has captured Eddie and has him tied and bound, attempting to lure Roland out as the lobstrosities emerge from the water. So the clock is ticking, and now we're going to take a look and see what's happening while she is setting that up. So yeah, let's jump right in with the chapter Roland Takes His Medicine, because when your physical body is dying of fever, and you have your opportunity to go to New York, what is the first place you're going to go to guarantee to ensure?
Gun shop.
Yep, gun shop.
Gonna go to the gun shop.
Bullets
His priorities are literally weapons over health, which, like, I mean, and like Binding of Isaac, like that's probably a good plan, but
right.
In real life, maybe not so much.
Yeah. So I love the way this is set up, because we got a little bit of this. Roland got a sense of Jack Mort, his reputation among his coworkers. Everybody's kind of afraid of him. He has this kind of just unpleasant countenance, but being inside Mort's mind is like being inside of a worm pit. And with Mort kind of passed out, from the shock of having his mind invaded, Roland can only kind of tolerate this by thinking of him as a combination atlas and encyclopedia, or as King calls it, the Mortcipedia.
Mortcipedia, which isn't even particularly a good portmanteau. Like, it's just such a weird combination of words.
Yep.
Well, King loves it because he uses it in practically every other paragraph. So
every other sentence. Where's Jacklopedia at? Like, that makes way more sense to me.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah. I've never understood the Mortcipedia at all. Like, it never, even as a young kid, I was like, this seems stupid, Stephen King.
Yeah, you could just say I consulted his memories or his knowledge or something. It's a little cute, but like, what do you guys think of that idea of him kind of rooting around in his mind, trying to figure out a way to navigate 20th century New York?
Well, it's certainly interesting. It's interesting from the fact that I did have to pause for a second and wonder if that's how it's worked previously. Like, I was like, wait, so he passes out. kind of conveniently. And then so for most of these chapters, Roland just kind of wears him, and he's really just there as like an access tool, which is, I think it's the main source of comedy in these chapters. So I think it's pretty entertaining from that sense. But
it really is. Good.
It's really entertaining, and also it's terrifying. Like, if you put yourself in the position of Jack Mort, where this like alien being, which even if it was like, even though, you know, Roland is a human man, like it's still like he's an alien being from another world who thinks totally differently than you, is taking over your mind to the point that you're screaming, passing out, and then you're just like, I'm sure he can still feel it, like his, like Roland's mental fingertips going over the catalog, like looking for how to say the word taxi, right? Like it's just so terrifying to me. But It's a really cool idea, like the concept of being able, someone using like all of the stored knowledge in their head, and is just really neat.
And in previous encounters, well, I guess when Roland was inside Detta's mind, it was really just a mad dash to the door. But with Eddie, it was more of a dialogue, right? Like, hey, they were talking back and forth. And so that provided a little bit of information. What we have here is a stranger in a strange land who is consulting somebody else's mind, like like a computer. And that actually comes up a little bit later on in one of the funniest, but also simultaneously kind of scariest sections.
Yeah.
Or at least passages, rather.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where we're at. But there's also, you know, this idea, you know, it's death, but not for you. These are two killers who are sharing the same body. Right? There's a wonderful line: when it came to planning, there were no creatures in the universe more different than Roland and Jack Mort.
I really enjoy that, because I love the idea of Roland having, like, I think he calls it a rough plan. And, you know, because planning rough is often better than planning something. I don't remember what they call Jack Mort's plan, but, you know, that planning rough, and like he's just going to improvise. And that just seems so Roland. Like, it's just something that Roland would do, of like, okay, I'm going to walk from here to there, and whatever happens, I can probably shoot it on the way there, but I don't really need to worry about it very much. Whereas Jack Mort is like, I'm going to walk 4 steps here, and I'm going to lead with my left foot, and then I'm going to go walk 2 steps to the left, so I can, like, he's that kind of guy, that real meticulous planner. So, this is like 2 of my favorite chapters in Drawing of the Three, because I know people are kind of exhausted with the Stranger in a Strange Land stuff of Roland mispronouncing stuff that's like actually like Keflex and things like that, but I really, really enjoy it. Like, I eat this stuff up, so this is all gold to me.
Yes, a tax C.
Yeah.
Yes. Attack C.
Yeah. It's fine, you know, in a small dose. It's contained here. It comes up a little bit later in the series, but like, this is the hardest that they lean on it, I think.
Yeah, and this is really the first time that Roland is loose in you know, a strange place just by himself, because he's only with Odetta briefly, and then he's really talking with Eddie, so they can sort of have that communication. But this is my favorite example of it, because essentially Roland's on his own in this. He's just going about our world just with like sort of a, you know, a little tourist guide. So I think that's it lands the best for me here, because he's just so alone and just trying to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and he's disgusted by the decadence of this world. Right, on the plane, he noticed how much people were wasting paper. You know, whole magazines, you know, full of some of the most valuable substance that he knows from his world, right? And when he gets to this, you know, to this gun shop, there are a couple things. Like, he sees some other gunslingers. He sees 2 cops outside and notices that they are, you know, fat and lax. And when he goes inside and says, like, hey, I need some bullets, and he identifies them in this book, you know, by sight, because that's just how he rolls, you know, he is shocked to find out that he can just have 150 of them. You know, for some of this paper, 150 rounds. Ye gods, what mad storehouse of riches was this?
If I ever get to be a supervillain, I'm totally naming my little henchman guys Fat and Lax, because it just sounds like, you know, it just sounds fat. Grab the hero. Lax, grab his girlfriend. It just sounds so good.
Are these going to be your children, or are you going to steal the identity and erase the identity of these two people?
Well, I guess, I mean, you know, we could have fat number 1 and fat number 2, or you know, fat child and fat henchman. Like, I guess both is what I'm saying. I'll definitely do both.
Yep. Oh man,
I wanted to. I know we got a little bit past it, but what do you guys think about like this characterization of Jack Mort as this like kind of high-powered like CEO rich guy? Like this just seems so weird to me when it comes up like in the scene with the elevator with his like coworker as Roland is taking over his body, and like there's this whole conversation about a high-powered deal and everything. Like it's one of these examples of Stephen King doing like a whole lot of like history work as when from the perspective of characters, and they think about their whole backstory before they say any words in the actual book.
Yeah,
and it's just like it's a weird turn for a Jack Mort character that was dropping bricks on black women in the the early 50s and 60s.
Yeah, Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, it kind of worked for me just in the fact that I guess when I was younger, I watched a lot of Criminal Minds. So it's actually kind of surprising, and Jen just sort of that sparked like a little bit of an interest in just like why so many of these characters are pretty like in pretty good positions, and it's actually not completely out of line for someone who's a serial killer to be kind of pretty good with people, because as a sociopath, they spend extra time learning how to fit in. So, I mean, I guess it's just from that background that I kind of bought it. And I kind of got that, like, as someone who likes to plan so much, he needs, in order to do what he really likes to do, he has to have this contingency where he sort of lives in style and presents the image of someone who's well adjusted. That way he won't get caught.
Yeah, a little bit of a Patrick Bateman kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it says that he's a CPA. I don't... Do CPAs in New York live these lavish lifestyles and cut?
I mean,
huge
like
deals?
he has a $6,500 watch. Like the only I know 2 CPAs, and one lives in New Zealand, so I can't really pull that. But like I don't think so, right? Maybe like in the early 80s or wherever this was based. Like maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I think that I'm okay with it. The part that's more interesting to me is that his coworkers are afraid of him, of him, and Roland can sense this, but he also knows that they don't know why. He senses this kind of unease, which I could see a Jack Mort using to his advantage. In a lot of the situations, but yeah, it's
absolutely agree.
Yeah, I don't know that I see him as a high-powered CEO. I totally believe it. Yeah, but that is the more pertinent detail for me. And it's he dies ignominiously anyway. I can never say that word right the first time. Ignominum. Yeah.
Just stretch it out for as long as possible. That way people forgive you.
Yep. Yeah. It's like jazz. If you hit the wrong note, okay, fine. Hit it 3 more times.
It's about the consonants that you don't say.
Oh man, I wish I was fast enough to just say a sentence without any consonants. It would just be that's how I talk anyway. Oh god. So gets in a cab and kind of again does this whole thing like, let the meter run, let me know, just take me to a drugstore or to the to this gun shop. In here, like, this is a place that runs guns for the mob, because it's New York in the 70s. Everything has to relate to the mob, right? And something that's not in the Mortsapedia is that Roland will need a permit in order to buy some of these delightful bullets that he needs for his 45, right? And so he develops a plan to put this in action. Sean, what do you think of his plan?
I think it's a ridiculous plan. Like I've been going over this, and I'm trying to think how. So he's trying to set up this pretty like Ocean's 11 style scenario where it seems like there's so many more moving pieces than you really need. Like I'm trying to understand. Like that's definitely a point to talk about, because so if I want a gun, my first thought isn't to bring in cops. In order to get their like, it just like I've played a little Grand Theft Auto, and that's about my way of getting guns. I'm not sure that's the way I would do it in that game. So I'm just yeah. What do you guys think about this plan? Because I buy it and it's fun, but I don't know if I think about it too long, it starts to seem overly complicated.
Why does he bring the cops in at all? That is what I don't get, and it's. it makes for an interesting thing. And I guess to tell the listener, like, he goes out, he tells the cops, like, hey, this guy stole my wallet, which he kind of drops underneath the counter. And also this guy was carrying a gun, which gets the cops real excited. Like, the cops were about to leave, like the in the narrative, the cops say that they were about to like just walk away and go do something else for a little while. So he could have just leaned over and just like probably like slap this dude unconscious, like, because it's Roland of Gilead, he can do anything that he wants to, and then just taken all of the bullets and all of the guns that he wanted to and walk out. I don't flip the close sign on his way out, because we'll find out later he knows how to do that. He knows the difference in open and closed.
Well, they are in the great letters, you see.
That's true. Yeah, they are in the high high alphabet or whatever. But yeah, like I'm with you, Sean. Like this whole setup where he baits these cops in there to, I guess, distract the guy so that he can knock everybody out just seems way overcomplicated. It sounds like Stephen King wanted to ramp up the tension, right? Like he wanted to just like crank it up so that Roland was literally on the run from everything, because from this point forward, this is actually probably the worst decision Roland could have made.
It's like Stephen King thought, okay, we need to have motivation for these cops to chase Roland later, notwithstanding that he holds up a pharmacy in the next couple pages. Like, they're gonna chase you, man. You know that from your world, I know it's bad storytelling, but like, I wish that there would have been some kind of statement of what he intended to do and why he wanted to get the cops involved. Like, the ideal version of this would be, hey, this is what I want to do. Say that, and then have it go wrong and have him do this. As it stands, the way it turns out is portrayed as what he wanted to happen all along, and that is not good motivation.
No, it's weird, and I think I let it slide because I love these cops.
Oh yeah,
they because what I really like about these chapters is, so Roland is really telling us what he thinks about our world, and so we get sort of some of Stephen King's views, but we get to see like normal people reacting to Roland. And the way that King sets this up is just great. How he talks about the like 10 years down the line when these cops think of something and they're remembering this moment to just really, because Roland's been so sick and so hurt this whole book. So this chapter is really sort of a redemption for Roland in the fact that like he becomes this legendary character where these two cops and then this old guard, they're like remembering him back in the day. And the way he just like sets up those memories just makes this, it adds like sort of like a grandiose feel to this whole event, which is just holding up a gun shop really. So
yeah. I don't want to let these cops off the hook for doing some gay jokes about the handcuffs. I'm not sure if that was just, hey, this is Stephen King making a joke at the time. That might have been acceptable. They do a stereotypically gay voice and talk about, I can't find the lavender handcuffs or whatever at this weapon store, which is no good.
Later on at the drugstore, we also get from the lady on the phone, we get a homosexual slur over there, which makes me think that either Stephen King just was casually using this language back then, and I know he's a pretty decent dude nowadays. So like I'm not going to crucify him on what he wrote 30 years ago. Or he just literally thinks that everybody but him says these words.
Right.
He just assumes that all cops are homosexual or homophobic, excuse me.
Yeah. So,
well, he has a bunch of other slurs too. And it happens with such frequency, like the cab driver, like it's like every character who you hop in their head, they take an extra moment to just make a joke at the expense of, a minority group and using terrible words. And it's like, is he trying to say something about New York, or is he just unaware at this time of like you said, he could have progressed, but it really hits home really hard how many slurs and stuff that are used in these chapters from every character you come across.
Yeah, this is this is 30 years later. Regardless of his intent, it still comes across as pretty dated. Is not executed in a way that makes up for the deficit that is brought by doing this. So this has been
all of the for all of like the tightrope walking you guys have been doing on the podcast so far with Detta and Odetta, like this. The casual usage here, and then if you go into other Stephen King fiction, like you get into the needful things of the world and that kind of stuff, like there's some pretty gross things that he writes in there from his characters doing gross things. Like it's not like Stephen King is out there calling anybody a racial slur, but he's using this language and it's just really bizarre. Like, I guess it fits the characters and it works,
Right.
but now when I read it, I'm like, do you have to? Like, could you have made this point without the dude being racist or homophobic or whatever? Like, so, you're the creative genius. Like, what about this makes you put it in there?
Yeah, I haven't read a tremendous amount of things that he has written post Dark Tower, so it's hard for me to say if he has just dropped this. There's an argument to be made that the way that a person uses language, specifically the way that a person uses vulgarity, specifically in fiction, says a lot about them and their character. If somebody, I'm watching Veep right now, and whenever Tony Hale's character, this really like innocent, kind of bag boy kind of guy, swears whenever he, says fuck, it's like, oh, this is serious, because everybody around him is using this. Like, that is just kind of example. Like, that is a choice that can be made. And a slur is a kind of swear. It's just different and it's different and it has a victim, built into it. And this has been your Duckfeed Social Justice Minute. I didn't mean to close the book on that. If there are any other thoughts, I didn't want this to go unremarked on.
That's a good point to close. Yeah. I take exception with Stephen King and his stuff after the Dark Tower, because for a while there, every single one of his books, like, it revolved around either a mentally challenged kid or like some young kid that was like had psychic powers that could communicate with aliens or something. Like, every single book had that. It was like, dude, come on, like, you're so creative. Like, you were so smart at this stuff. Like, why is it always the same thing?
Yeah.
So
yeah. We'll see more. We will see more. So the things that Sean was talking about and that I alluded to earlier, so these cops are involved, and they notice something is off about this guy. There are two specific anecdotes that we get kind of in rough succession. The first is one of them later on goes to a science museum and sees a computer that does chess, right, that plays chess. And it kind of calculates this move and weights, and he remembers, oh, that person that we dealt with that one time, this this horrible monster who caused so much chaos, there was this similar kind of delay in his speech. That's weird. More so, the other person, so the other police officer is going to see a movie, and he sees a character who kind of has the same icy intonation and the same delay and the same lack of affect, and he gets up and screams, it's him, and then dies of a heart attack. And in what I think is a pretty good turn of phrase or a way of revealing this information, says, and that movie was, of course, The Terminator. and so there's a lot of stuff later on in the series that we're not going to talk about in a lot of very explicit detail right now, because it could be construed as spoilers or whatever, where specific pop culture is brought into the story, and either used to make a point or used as an actual device in the plot or used as a point of comparison. In this book so far, we have seen a reference to The Shining, a movie based on one of Stephen King's own works, and also this right here, which is used to explain the way that he's acting, saying he is so reminiscent of the Terminator that the very resemblance is enough to cause a man to die. Like, the seeds for this are actually laid out.
Well, they also say the dude is 70 years old, a heavy smoker, and has a bad heart. So, like, it's not. It wasn't just Arnold. It wasn't just Arnold on the screen, right? Like, right. It was a confluence of factors. But yeah, right. Like, the fact that this dude, that like Roland basically terrified this dude to death 30 years later by like consulting his Jackalopedia is just hysterical to me. Like, it's just so great.
Yep. So everything kind of goes into motion as these cops are brought in there, and they question the guy, and then Roland slams their heads together like two coconuts. They even say it's like two large rocks hitting each other. He takes one of their guns, points at the guy at the clerk, who screams and farts. And Roland is so honorable, he takes the four boxes of bullets and leaves money for him.
Yeah, this is really. I like that Roland is honorable enough to try to start paying people for all the stuff that he's holding them hostage for, basically. But like, Roland, you just like smacked around two cops. You caused this dude to fart and scare himself so badly he wet himself, which is an impressive thing to make somebody do. Like, then you're going to drop the 420s on the table and leave. Like, what?
Yeah,
you've got like 20 minutes. Eddie is still trussed up, about to get ate up. Like, hurry up. Don't worry about settling up the tab.
Yeah.
The sea has halfway
to,
eaten the sun. Go ahead, Sean.
I have to take the low road here because I listened through this section twice in preparation, and I'm such a like, I don't know. My sense of humor is pretty basic because, man, I laughed both times when he talks about how the guy farts and thinks it's a gunshot, and I'm just like,
I forgot about that.
He thinks it's a gunshot, which is why he wets himself and screams.
Yeah.
It just cracks me up.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I'm looking here. I highlighted it, but I forgot to make a note of that particular series of events. Yeah,
I just imagine being so scared that your own fart causes you to wet yourself. It's just, I don't know. Yep. I'm 12 years old, so
no, it's good. You know, Stephen King he works very well in these this low language, these low forms, right? To say it as pretentiously as fucking possible. Go ahead.
While we're talking about this dude farting and wetting himself, a little bit later, and it's not big enough to really mention, but like he's so terrified by this whole experience, he wants to get right with God, and he's like, I was just skimming a little from Balazar, but now I'm gonna quit that. I'm gonna go do a confession. I'm gonna like he wants to change his whole life after this experience. But I also like the Balazar reference. Like that dude hasn't that dude's still alive because we're earlier than we were before. So yeah. Just a neat little like world building thing in there.
Yeah. And I mentioned it last time, but Balazar is the person who hits Jake. So I forget when that's revealed. But it's in there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah. Wheels within wheels.
Car is a wheel, man.
Yep.
Sometimes it's a 4-wheeled Chevrolet, but car is a wheel.
For sure. Yeah. So he's got his bullets, and now he can attend the less pressing matter, which is making sure he doesn't, die of crab bite. And heads over to the drugstore. Meanwhile, we get a cut back to the beach. Eddie is panicking again, reminding us of these stakes. And this is kind of when I was reading back through this, I was like, wait a minute, does this happen? Is Eddie horrifically scarred? Because it's just presented under another subheader of these lobsterosities coming up and then like peeling skin from Eddie's face.
Yeah.
This seems very unlike Roland to think. And he shakes it off pretty quickly, right? Yeah. Like he's like, you can't really think about that. And he has like a memory of Court telling him like, shut up, maggot, do the things, control the things you can control. And, probably clacks him in the ear because that's the kind of teacher that Court is. But like it is presented in a way that it got me like, even as I reread it again right before the show, just to refresh my memory, I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember. Oh yeah. Yeah. But doesn't it seem unlike Roland to do this?
He doesn't present a lot of anxiety.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. That's a much better way of saying that.
Yeah. It's nothing saying. It says a brave man is not a person who's never scared. A brave man is somebody who doesn't let us change his behavior. Like, so it could just be one of these moments, but like it's a little bit of like a stunt almost on King's part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It keeps the, like, I think it's just sort of like a little gotcha, but it keeps the pacing going because just giving you that extra little panic, it's sort of a cheap move, but like it does help to just keep that constant like worry because it definitely feels like it's more for the audience than he like extends to being slightly out of character for Roland in order to just keep that panic going. Yeah. Is sort of how I took it. To
remind you of the stakes, yeah. I don't feel good, bad, or indifferent about it. It's just it was a very jarring thing to come back to. So Roland is walking down the streets of New York with gun belts crossed over his hips because he has stolen those guns from the cops in order to bring them back to Eddie and Detta. At this point.
And the picture here, like I always have this like really vivid mental image because Jack was wearing this like blue, what I can only assume like is a power suit. And they've made a point of saying that he's got a fancy Rolex. He's got Gucci shoes on. And then Roland has taken this outfit, slung two like revolvers, like not even like police wear them where they're straight, but they even say like slung them, crisscrossed them like he wears them.
Yeah.
And is running down the street so that the suit jacket is blowing behind him and the guns are fully visible. Like the only thing he's missing is like himself holding onto a cowboy hat of some kind, right? Like this picture is just insane to me and I love it so much. Just like weird thing that people must be looking around me like, I guess it's New York.
They
must be filming something again.
The man in blue fled across Fifth Avenue and the NYPD followed. Yeah,
exactly.
So
That's really
It was really good.
It is a raid like this as he walks into Katz's drugstore, and we get this again, a scene of another professional who runs afoul of Roland. As he is bodyjacking, as this this pharmacist thinks, hey, this is the worst that it's going to get, is somebody haranguing me to fill their Valium prescription, right? Like, yeah. So that is who he's here for. Roland, meanwhile, is stepping in and immediately wonders at the array of tonics and tinctures in front of him, but finds out that it is all a hoax, as he consults the Mortsapedia, and then remembers he has a recollection of, in his travels before, the gunslinger, meeting a magician named Randall Flagg and being chased by two men named Dennis and Thomas. Right, so that is our Eyes of the Dragon connection, if you've been waiting for how that happens.
They're in the same universe.
Yep, it's another barony. It's like 2 kingdoms over if you look at the map.
Sure, right there. It's just right next to it.
Just right there. It's right next to Gilead. Yeah.
I love this that Roland was really expecting this to be like a stereotypical medieval apothecary type situation with a hooded figure that might be trouble, and he looked through the windows and he saw all these smiley happy people and was like, oh, that's an illusion, and then walked in and was like, wait, that's not an illusion, what the fuck is this? I just really it's so good. Roland expecting this and then not getting, and it just made me think of if we actually had apothecaries in the modern day, how awkward it would be to have to go in and get your hemorrhoid cream from them and be like, Martin.
Yes, Jeremy.
I just need stop doing the voice. I just need my medicine. All I need.
Present me a balm of witch hazel.
Dude, just give me the preparation H and let me leave. I'm tired of this.
It sounded like you were going to say something, Sean.
Oh no, I think that it's the fact that he thinks they're illusions. It just gets me to what extent it just doesn't seem set up in his world. Are there illusions around his apothecaries? Do the wizards in his world like to have fake people parade around? It's a really strange thought to imagine that he's oh, they must be illusions, because it's just such a weird place to go with that, instead of assuming I don't know, maybe they're thralls, maybe they're something, but they're probably fake people.
They're definitely fake people.
In his head, he's in a strange place.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and I can relate to that, because when I was traveling over I was over in Germany for a while, and we were going around to different countries, and inevitably traveling, people get sick, and there is something very confusing about trying to go to a pharmacy or something in another country in a way that does feel kind of relatable here, just because you're looking for the sign, if it's a cross or a snake. There's always some weird way. It does have that sort of iconic it just felt kind of similar to that, where it is this sort of weird place where you're not exactly sure what to expect.
Maybe he thought the people were actually dogs that were turned into people, because he talked about Flagg while he was being chased by Dennis and Thomas, and never being able to forget Flagg turning a man into a dog. So maybe he just assumes that the other is possible. This guy had a lot of puppies. He turned them into people to make people think not to come in the apothecary for some reason.
The apothecary.
Work with me here.
Yeah, it's the apothecary, in case you missed it.
Apothecary.
I felt the need to make sure people heard that, which shows you I was proud of myself and thought I did a good job.
And we agreed.
So he goes in, and Kat's hot off the heels of getting this woman her Valium, says, hey, I need all of the Keflex that you've got. And he does the whole Chieflet thing. I want a lot now, and never mind the Rex RX, which to me actually calls to mind, okay, so how is he accessing this information? Is he seeing it written? Because RX, I've never in my entire life heard somebody refer to a prescription written RX as Rex. Hey, what about the Rex?
especially in the plural form of like, never mind the Rexes or whatever, like, because he actually says that there's, and to me, like, if it was Jack Mort, like, had access to weird pills or whatever because he's a high-powered CPA for some reason, like
pills.
He's got his business pills, dog. He gets them from Balazar. It all ties in. But like, wouldn't he refer to it like? Wouldn't Jack know them as scripts? Like that seems like a more common slang for that. Like I got some scripts from this, friendly doctor I know, so I can get my stupid illegal pills or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, the Rexes thing really weirded me out too.
Yeah. I don't know. It makes sense if you say it out loud. No, it doesn't. It makes less sense if you do that. I don't know. I'm really
maybe this is a weird like North Englander thing that we just.
Maybe.
Sean, you're from North England, right?
Yeah, no, we say scripts. I have
okay,
my mom works for a doctor's office. My wife works at a pharmacy. Never heard Rexes in my life. So
yeah.
I do like the gunshot here though, because that's what actually gets Kat's like attention.
Yeah.
Because Roland walks in full gunslinger, and this security guard like pulls on him, and Roland just like is like, as if nothing in the world. In fact, he said I had to hurry it up a little bit because I was slow on the draw. Just shoots the gun out of his hand.
Yep. He shoots the gun out of his hand while he's at the table, or at the counter. Also, he shoots a knife out of somebody else's hand because he sees them coming around the corner in the mirror globe.
Yeah, shoots the knife like apart, like with the guy still holding the handle. Like shoots the blade off. Well, I love it because it's Roland of Gilead. I do. I love when Roland does these like kind of trick shots, and I think they even refer to it as like an Annie Oakley shot, right? Like I love that stuff. But like, man, can you imagine like someone shoots at you, and like you look down, and all of a sudden your knife is gone? That's so great.
Also, he doesn't look at him. They make a point to say like he just turns his gun and fires. Like he doesn't break eye contact with Katz. As he performs, in Katz's word, what must be the first penicillin robbery in history. And just because Roland's an honorable guy and he doesn't care about Jack Mort's possessions for reasons we're going to find out pretty soon, he decides to pay for $60 worth of Keflex with a $6,500 Rolex watch, which causes Katz to not press charges. So let's cut back over to our friends the cops as they wake up to radio chatter about our friend Roland, nay Jack Mort. Okay. Hearing about this holdup, and they freak out that, oh shit, our service weapons have been stolen and discharged. We are fucked if we don't get it back. So that is their motivation to act as recklessly as they do.
Yeah, they literally like jump into the car, peel out like it's an action, like a Charles Bronson movie, with one of the cops hanging out of the side with a shotgun. Yeah, like, it's ridiculous. They're so over the top.
They just open fire into the front window of this pharmacy without knowing if anybody's inside.
And I love that it pisses Roland off so much, right? Like Roland sees this and he's like, these are assholes. Like I tried to take it easy on him before, and I don't want to kill him because they're gunslingers, but I'm going to fuck him up a little bit. Like, I'm going to go after him.
Yeah. Like, he straight up charges one of them, tackles them, like knocks him out or knocks him insensate and says, hey, you're a danger to everybody around you and you should be sent west. Yeah. And meanwhile, he's glorifying in this. It's probably not that much of a spoiler to say this is the last time that he's going to be able to hold a gun in his whole right hand. He even says, "Oh, it feels so damn good." Like this is kind of him in his element in a weird, perverse way. Again, we have these two killers, same body, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like that he does the super hot move too. Like when the cop comes in with a shotgun, he punches the cop, catches the shotgun as the dude drops it, and then like clubs the other dude with it, breaking his face in like 5 places. And I love that Stephen King goes out of his way to be like, he needed 4 pins and 3 surgeries to put himself right.
Yep. It broke his Oculus bone. Yeah.
It just makes you feel so good about that. So, I don't know. It just makes you feel like that they got what they deserve.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
These pieces of shit. I'll teach you to do a gay voice. Yeah.
Yeah. Roland really seems, it's like I just love the way like he does focus on it quite a bit. He's like a parent. He's like, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed, and I'm gonna fuck you guys up as a result. He's just so. I just love how he puts on what a gunslinger is onto them, and just how he spends quite a few sentences just saying like, this isn't how it's done. Like
he cuts them off a slice of court.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now that he has escaped, from this pinned down position, he has a plan. And in order to get where he needs to go, to get the information about where he needs to end up in this car, he demands from Jack, hey, tell me where the village is, or I will gouge your eyeball out. Because Roland does not give a fuck. But his plan is to go to the subway station where Detta was pushed, where she lost her legs.
I was just on the pulling his eye out or whatever, gouging his eye out. Like, I love the fact that they're in the same mind. Stephen King says that they have a way more intimate relationship than even having sex with somebody, because it's a mind-to-mind connection.
Yeah.
So Morton absolutely 100% understands that Roland is not screwing with him. He's not bluffing. Like, he's totally capable of doing this. And like, immediately Mort falls in line as like, yes, I will drive you. Yes, sir. No, right away, sir. Absolutely, sir. Please don't poke my eye out, sir.
Yep. Well, so Mort woke up when Roland was showered with glass by the front door being shot out. The paint on his body woke him up. And throughout the rest of this chapter, pretty much, Mort is screaming kind of incomprehensibly for most of the time, saying like, what are you doing? Why is this happening? Stuff like that. And Roland has no mercy for it whatsoever.
Yeah, no, he recognizes that part of what Mort is doing is like, how's he put it, like disingenuous in some way. Like, he's screaming, but there's something about how it's not like how a normal person would be screaming. He's sort of doing it just as a reaction. I didn't quite understand that part, but
just be like, hey, acting more scared than you actually are in order to you try and evoke an emotional response out of somebody,
Yeah. And I like how for this, like Roland, because they have that mind-to-mind connection, he can't think too much about what he's planning to do to Jack. So he has to just like lay out step by step, like little breadcrumbs to what his ultimate goal is.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in the subway station. First of which is one of those cops shoots him in the chest and he spins around and falls to the ground. He's safe, right? The bullet doesn't break in, doesn't break into his heart, which sounds like a weird, like a Smith's line or something like that. But instead hits a lighter that's in his breast pocket, and it's out of the frying pan and literally into the fire, because that sets him on fire. So again, tick tock.
Did either one of you? Did either one of you catch the line here where Stephen King says something about Jack's heart not being as name brand as the stuff that he buys, which really, like, it's like, fortunately, like his affinity for brands does not go below the skin. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, the bullet, we get it, the bullet stops it, but like, we know Jack is bad. Like, he doesn't have a brand name heart. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I saw that too. Like, why would? Yeah, that is absolutely a crazy way to try and characterize it. It's sold, right? Like, all you have to tell me is like Rolex and Gucci, and his workers are afraid of him, and I have a pretty good portrait of the dude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This dude is on fire, and I love this because he, Roland ignores all the pain. Mort starts screaming in his head, like he's just like, please make this stop, put me out. This hurts so bad, and Roland is just straight up ignoring him.
So he can lay
in
still.
Order to like trap the cops.
Yeah. So the cop who winged him comes up and tries to say like to investigate this situation. Roland kicks him in the chest, pins him, says, "Hey, you know what? You're okay. Like you're not as bad as that other fucker who fired indiscriminately into a building. But don't follow me because I do not want to have to kill you." And then he breaks for it.
Which, this has got to be a weird thing to report to your superior after all of this is said and done, right? What, did he say anything to you? Well,
is this some kind of
actually did tell me?
Is this some kind of crazy, involved, intricate training operation? Like, did I pass? Help me.
This is a weird way to get to the Secret Service, man. Let me tell you.
So Roland in Mort's body again, he rushes to the platform, drops trowel, and stuffs the bullets, the guns, and the medicine into Mort's tidy whities. It's mentioned that they resemble a horror's panties, and And that's the language that's used in the book. And in the comic books, frustratingly, they make it out that Mort wears women's underwear when he does his killing and stuff. As his thing, like in order to make him like sexy and dangerous or whatever. Not sexy and dangerous, but like, oh, here's a deviant any number of way. Like it's, you know, like wearing women's underwear is a way that just a sign that somebody is no good, which is absolutely crazy. But no, like he's just noticing that like Mort's wearing tighty whities, he's wearing briefs, you know.
Yeah, definitely not the ladies' underwear. It's not. I pictured him like Walter Whiting it onto the tracks. Like that's sort of the vision in my head.
100% is what I was envisioning. Yes.
Yeah. So like the comics are generally okay. Like specifically the adaptations of the Gunslinger and the drawing of the three and beyond. But that particular detail is like taking this line from the book way too literally. I much prefer that, you know, Mort's a tighty whitey guy, you know, not that there's any judgment behind it, but like it doesn't line up with Roland's expectation of what a dude wraps his junk with.
Which would make sense. Like, I mean, we in the modern day, we're all weird about underwear. Like, I mean, I bet if Roland ever heard an ad for MeUndies on a podcast, it would blow his fucking mind, right? Like, what, you're just gonna send me underwear? Like, I'll just make some or get my mother to buy me some. I don't need you to send me one. Oh, 10% off, you say?
Oh, wow!
If I use the discount code at Radio Free Midworld, wow!
You don't say. Please don't try to do that.
Don't try to do that.
Yeah. I ordered one pair of MeUndies and they sent me a hat, which was very nice, but I did not order a second.
Like a hat for your junk, or
yeah, it was a Jimmy hat. No, just a hat. Like they. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
You got me. Jimmy hat is great.
Yeah. No. I ordered a pair, just like, you know, because like, I don't know, I've gotten some good deals on podcast stuff. Like it's generally okay, but it's like, this isn't much better than what I can get elsewhere. Like I understand there are probably finer distinctions, but no, in the box was a like a baseball cap that said MeUndies on it. Not that I'm gonna wear it, but it was a thing that they spent money on. Probably.
It's like a house hat.
It's like a what?
It's like a house hat. You just wear it around your house.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I've got my slippers on, my house shoes. I've got my robe, my house coat, and I've got my undies hat, my house hat. Yeah,
that's quite the ensemble.
Yeah.
I'm just totally nude right now. You guys must be cold.
So, looking at this here, he's got all this stuff and has to make contact with his skin in order for him to, you know, pass through with the things that he desperately needs on the other side. And he hops down onto the tracks, you know, knowing that this is going to be a way to do a couple of things simultaneously. This is what this accomplishes. First off, it gets Jack Mort out of the world. Right? This is a dangerous person. Roland is revulsed by the very presence of him. This is him, you know, killing him from within his own mind, right? This is never said. This is just the way that I look at it, right? This happens in the place where Odetta lost her legs, thus kind of bringing Detta herself closer to the surface, right? One of the first real times where, you know, the recurrences and the relapses started happening. And he's also doing this to convince Detta and Odetta to look through the door so they can confront each other, because both Eddie and Roland have encountered this dissonance at looking at themselves through the doors. Looking at themselves through the door. It's not a mirror. It's like looking at yourself. So this is convoluted cosmologically, but it's the plan. So I don't quite know what to say other than the train comes and Roland's like, "Hey, Odetta, look."
This is one of those weird quartet moments that Roland just kind of intuits. And this happens a lot more in the Wastelands, but I think this might be one of the first moments we see this where he's like, I don't know if I have a telepathic connection, but Roland, your whole goddamn plan depends on it.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, your whole plan was to like run him off and to turn at the right moment, but you've done nothing on the other side to trust that. I guess he's trusting Ka, right? Like that's what he's doing here. But he sends this like telepathic thing of like, Detta, Odetta, you know, look at me, and it works because, you know, plot. But it's just one of these weird quartet things that I think as I'm reading it now that I'm a little older, this rings as a little hollow to me.
Yeah,
and it's fine. Like I don't. It doesn't bother me, but it's just there.
To be fair, like if you're sitting on a beach waiting for the lobstrosities to come up, like this is going to be some good TV. So, like,
it's true. You know what? You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I'm not sure he needs the psychic connection. I think he just needs to be doing this crazy stuff, like set himself on fire. Like if you were watching this, I'd be pretty invested.
Yep. Especially if you hate the person who's inside this, like, hey, terrible things are happening to him. Maybe the train's going to hit him. Maybe the train is going to hit him before he comes out.
Not to get too in the weeds of like a what if thing, but I wonder what would have happened if Detta, like, is there anything in the text that of Eddie or Detta going through the door or not being able to go through the door like Roland does?
No. Detta and Detta, they never try to go through the doors. Eddie is able to go through himself when they go back to Balazar's, right? As long as the door never closes, it follows Roland up, up there, and he's able to bring them. Roland even says, like, hey, I'm going to need you to come with me when I go to the pusher, or when I go in to meet the lady, right? They didn't know her name yet. But there's no point where anybody is denied passage.
Okay. I was just imagining the situation where Detta like sees this as an opportunity to get back to the real world, goes in, and all of a sudden there's Roland, Odetta, and Detta all in Jack Mort's mind, and then he just literally goes crazy, right?
Crazier. Yeah.
Or probably just absolutely goes insane because she'd start screaming. Like all three of them would probably start screaming. So.
Just nothing but pages and pages of ah.
Yeah. Have you seen that Twitter account, the constant screaming? That's literally just tweets with ah across it every day.
No, I have not. Oh, gosh, I love those things. The same picture of John Coulier every day, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So what happens is Detta looks into the mirror and sees kind of her true self, gets this dissonance, and in a body that already has this amount of dissonance, sharing the same physical form, alternating times, whatever, this causes some kind of split between them, and they become two different physical entities, at least for a short time. And this is obviously playing fast and loose for dramatic effect. Who knows how much of this is metaphorical? Who knows how much of this is a manifestation or spiritual, any of that? Detta has never been presented as like an interloper, right? Like an outside force that inhabits Odetta's mind, like we see Roland doing, or like we see later in the series. But what happens is, they split, and all of a sudden we have two women, both of them beautiful, both of them, screaming in anguish as they are separated from their other, and they start attacking each other, right? So Roland, as he, passes back through, Jack Mort having died alone, severed at the waist, which gross. They're having
it's not a happy ending for Jack at all.
No, but it's the ending he deserved. Roland comes back through and sees the two of them screaming, and there's this dialogue between Detta and Odetta, and Detta kind of gives her rationale, right? And all of it goes back to the blue plate. I'm going to try and strip the patois out of this, but I took the blue plate because, that woman, the blue woman, her aunt, landed her in the hospital, like they're just like that, like that is what happened. That is why this, this whole thing is there. She wanted revenge. And besides, like, she didn't get, the plate. Like, she feels like she's owed something. She feels like, hey, like she is the result of, some kind of terrible deal. And that's why she seeks this revenge. And that's kind of her kind of like cosmic motivation, this horrible sense of being slighted and this horrible sense of need and anger, right?
Yeah, she says like this bustin' line, and I know like cue the bustin' makes me feel good track already, but the for special plate, like I found it, I busted it because it needs busting, and when I founded white boys that need to be busted, I busted them too. Yeah, like Odetta is surrounded with this racial conflict and this thing, this she's a product of her time, of the civil rights movement and everything, and it's like she's very much on the opposite side of Detta, and it's never more apparent than when she's doing this stuff, because Detta is very quickly going to like weirdly fall in love with Eddie Dean for some reason. I actually
pretty charming guy.
I really like. I guess so. Like he sounds like he's a 21-year-old smartass, which at my current age I can't stand.
Yeah,
so maybe he's
go.
cooler than I'm giving him credit for.
But like right now, every 21-year-old smartass is an egg on Twitter. Like,
God, I'm so glad Twitter wasn't around when I was 21.
Oh, Jesus,
dodged a bullet on that one.
Yeah.
But I like this moment because we see Detta and like kind of full rage, and then Detta recognizes like, oh hey, like I'm the one that's in control here, like I'm the one that can change this. Yeah. And it doesn't take away anything from Detta. She's still mad, but then she realizes like, oh wait, like this isn't all me. Like I have something more than this weird patois thing that I'm doing. So I've really enjoyed this like physically splitting of these two people and then joining them right back together again.
Yeah. She decides, and so Detta is choking Detta, and Detta decides, instead of using her own hands to choke Detta back, she decides to embrace, right, and say like, hey, I love you, I accept you, and this causes the fusing, right? This is their fusion dance. I'm glad somebody laughed.
The fusion thing. I was taking a sip, but yes, this is the moment where they join and become Garnet. Absolutely.
So there is a little bit of a parallel here, right? There is the Professors Xavier Magneto split. There is the nonviolence versus violence that happens here. This is Detta choosing to make the decision, right? I don't know if okay, so I'll ask both of you, am I loading too much of that significance into it? Of Detta taking the charge and nonviolence being the answer? Again, leading back to the civil rights kind of thing. Okay.
Mm-mm.
No,
because
yeah,
I don't think
agree.
so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to answer for Sean, but like immediately after this, Odetta's kind of like this standing there and like kind of shocked that all of this has happened, and then she hears Detta in her mind, but it's not Detta's voice anymore; it's her voice.
Yeah. So
like they have blended together, but like the overriding personality is one of rationality. Like it's not just this crazy visceral, like bullshit psychotic thing that Detta was doing. Like even back to in the ambulance where she was screaming at that poor like paramedic, and he was like, well, who is this person? Yeah. Like several chapters ago. Like absolutely, like the nonviolence winning is the thing here.
Yeah. Sean?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's it's a thing where like Odetta is just she's helping to, like you said, like wrangle in that rage, and also to kind of accept that rage at the same time, because there is definitely some justice that Detta's looking for that is kind of deserved. It's just that she's so mad, and she feels like so helpless that Odetta stepping in is sort of a move of like pacifism within that, but also sort of a move of acceptance, and therefore like sort of giving her a way to act that's more productive than what she's been doing.
Yeah. So the fusion that takes place, and we don't get this until the beginning of the next book that kind of describes what's going on here. We're getting, Detta's ability to, her cunning, right, and her just kind of immense, just razor sharp kind of intelligence and situational awareness, and sense of viciousness. Something that is necessary to make her a gunslinger. That is tempered by, again, a sense of justice and a better sense of judgment from Odetta. Without Odetta's kind of attendant kind of hang-ups and just general kind of holier than thou kind of stuff to make her into a whole person. Right now she has been two completely separate people up until this point. And this is what happens as they realize, hey, this sick guy is not going to save my husband all alone. So
I love Detta. When things start happening right now, when like things start going crazy, Detta like yelling at Odetta in her mind to be like, "You have to go shoot them damn crabs! Like shoot them!"
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, the line of all of a sudden her hands were full of thunder because she grabs Roland's guns and just starts blowing them away. And it's so much. there's some moments with Detta and Odetta in this book that I just love. The other one is very, very early in the books when she comes out and she says, young man, what are you going to do with that knife? As Eddie's holding the knife against the gunslinger's neck, like that, and like her hands are full of thunder. Like it makes me really, really like the character. Like they're just like, this woman is just cool. Like you can tell, even with all of these challenges, she's a gunslinger. Like right here, she proves it.
She is ridiculously competent. Like in a way that Eddie is with his words, she is in following with, Roland and the way of the gun, and the way of weapons, and just in having a better assessment of the world as the way it is around her, It's pretty great.
Agreed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Eddie is saved, and Roland asks, "Okay, which one are you? Who are you?" And she says, "I am three women. I who was." I who had no right to be but was, and I am the woman that you have saved. And that's the way that it ends. We have our three primary antagonists dealt with. Mort has been cut in half by a train. Neat. We have Detta kind of being, well, I guess, Detta being fused with Odetta in order to form this more complete third, and we have the Lobstrosities, dead as fuck.
Well, and also now that the Lobstrosities have seen what guns do, there's a moment where Roland was like, I suspected that they were slightly intelligent, and here we saw it. Like as soon as 2 or 3 of them get clipped, the rest of them turn around and just carry ass. Like it's great. They're like, oh, sorry, didn't realize you guys had guns.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
later.
Data cater.
Yep. They just wave by and then they're out. Yeah. So do you guys have any thoughts about kind of this action-packed chapter here, the drawing, before we get to the final shuffle in this epilogue for the book?
I guess just in an English, sort of a minor English 101 way, I sort of like this theme of like seeing yourself, and it's just so interesting because I picked up on the fact that like Roland is characterized by other people seeing his actions, and then our world is characterized by Roland as an outsider looking at it, and it all sort of comes together in finally doing this thing where, Odetta and Detta see each other. So I think it was I read these things mostly, just, for the entertainment value, but I think it's some good sort of thematic writing, just keeping that idea of like just characters sort of seeing each other. It's just, I liked how the writing sort of lends itself towards the ultimate goal of these chapters. So
it's all about the eyes, something we didn't mention when we painted the picture of Roland inhabiting the body of Jack Mort, is the piercing blue eyes kind of coming through, a different kind of blue than Mort actually, carries forward. It literally changes the view and changes the window, Yeah.
Exactly.
Jeremy?
I don't have much. Like, I kind of feel like I've talked about pretty much everything that I like about this chapter. I think this more than anything, even more so than the Gunslinger itself, the original book, sealed this series to me. Like, it was at this moment of these three people coming together, and now they've got the medicine. Eddie's not addicted to cocaine or to heroin anymore, and Detta has turned into this, like you said, this rational third. Like, this was the moment where the quartet was formed, and it's perfect. Like, it's this was the moment that got me so excited to read the rest of the series, and I was so happy that there was a third book, and then I was so bummed when I read the third book and had to wait 7 years. So.
Yeah. So yeah, whereas the Gunslinger itself was a great exercise in world, and had a little bit of good relationship again with this economy between the three main players, between Roland and Jake and Walter. This really puts the rubber to the road in terms of character and pace and tension and plot. Like, it moves forward in a really cool way, and just to see everything come together, with all these echoes kind of collapsing in on themselves, as everything, as our, the third collapses in on herself too. It's all so great. And I just love this, this chapter, pound for pound, the whole scene between, let's say, the pharmacy and the subway, is probably some of the best that the book that the series gets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
So let's see how this all shakes out. They are, they still have to deal with the infection, as they're loading Roland up with Keflex and dealing with, antibiotic shits and what have you, and trying to move up the beach as they go. This final shuffle section ends with them hunting for deer, right? So finally, something besides lobsterosity meat. I'll put $1 in the jar, I guess. And there's also grass. They can get some greens. And Roland, delirious, wakes up and says, "No, do not eat the devil weed. Never that. Never that." Yeah. As
good on Roland for coming out of his illness fugue to be like, nope, not that stuff, don't do that, and then immediately go right back into his illness fugue.
Yep.
He just has a really good habit of doing that, of just waking up in the most opportune moments and then immediately having to go right back into
it's Ka, and then we're
sickness state, and then
it's Ka, and we're just gonna have to get used to that.
Yep,
because it's going to be here for the rest of the series. So, and what's left here is, the presentation of the quest and then giving them one last kind of opportunity to accept it, notwithstanding the fact that they are, trapped in this strange world and here for a purpose. So Roland is dreaming of the tower, and we get introduced to this new character. We've called her by this name a couple of times. This is who she is for the rest of the series, barring a couple of lapses. Susanna Dean, she is married. She has taken Eddie's name. Again, they are two people out of their element in this new world. And Roland, holding on to Walter's jawbone, says like, "Hey, here's what's going to happen. We're going to go on this quest, to the very end. I can't guarantee you're going to live, but this is what we're up against." And Eddie is more deeply affected by this than Susanna is, saying, "Hey, you're selling my brother." I love this line here, right? As cheesy as it is, man, I've got such a soft spot for Eddie. Sorry, I'm talking so much. I just need to get this out. Eddie says, you saw me. You saved more than my life. You saved my fucking soul. Like Eddie. Probably for as much as Eddie is probably going to die here, in this weird place, he probably had less time on the other side without Roland's involvement.
I wouldn't begrudge you reading this entire passage if you had it in the notes, because Eddie tells, Eddie is asking about this dark tower, and he says, else who had a tower? Like, my brother had a tower. He had a white tower, and he asked me to climb it with him, and I did because he's my brother. And that, that's what Roland saved him from. And I like that duality there. I like that imagery. And then I love it. I absolutely love it when both Eddie and Roland drift into kind of a romantic language. Mm-hmm. When Eddie starts saying stuff like, you saved my soul, and then he starts saying, what are you going to do about her? Like, I'm here with you, but you're not going to let her die. Like, I love her, man. Like, you're not going to treat her that way. And that stuff is very powerful to me, especially as a kid, because I've mentioned on the show before, I was really looking up to Eddie Dean, this ex-heroin addict weirdo. Thanks, Stephen King. You probably didn't affect me negatively or anything. But looking up to that guy and having that kind of passion for the woman that he's chosen to love, and that kind of passion for what he's going to do, and realize I'm here and I'm going to just fully commit to this is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
I love Roland's next line here about, and you have it in the notes, we all die in time. It's not just the world that moves on, but we will be magnificent. Like when Roland starts getting a little poetic, oh my God. It reminds me of, Sean, I know this is one of your favorite things in Dark Souls 3, not to, check a box somewhere, but I know you'll remember it, the guy with the Colossus line. I can't remember the dude's name.
Corland. What's his name from Corland? Yeah.
Oh
doesn't really matter.
Ludwig of Corland. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact words, but it reminds me a lot of that line of just we will be magnificent.
Yeah, I may be small, but I will link the fire and I will die as a colossus.
Yeah,
something like
that's what it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love this line too, but we will be magnificent. Yeah, just it gives you the goosebumps.
Yeah.
So good.
So with the quest accepted, here's the final the final passage here, and I'll just say this. The sun stained the east a dusky rose, and at last Roland, no longer the last gunslinger but one of the last three, slept and dreamed his angry dreams, through which there ran that one soothing blue thread. There I will sing their names. Again, talking about singing the names of the fallen that his new quartet, this new three, has replaced. Everybody he has lost, everybody he has forsaken, everybody he has sacrificed on the way to the tower. He, even in this, kind of moment, this moment of beginning, is still dreaming of that end, and at least telling himself in his dreaming mind that is what he is doing this for, is to justify this by screaming their names at the center of the cosmos.
Man, can we just start talking about the Wastelands now? Can we just get right into it?
I know.
A lot of deer get killed.
I'm
a lot
ready.
of gunslinger burritos.
Well, I like the sort of, I don't know if I'm misreading a bit, but I like there's like the hint of darkness there where it's where, you wonder, like, so he's singing their names, and I kind of get the impression he's even in his mind just imagining that he's singing, not just like Cuthbert and Elaine and stuff, but he's also thinking of singing like Susanna and Eddie's names. Like, he's fully prepared. And just the fact that earlier in this chapter, they do bring out how, like, how there's been those in his quartet who've died, and some by like his own hand. Mm-hmm. It gives that little bit of extra darkness that I just love, that between the gunslinger in this book and, continuing through the series, it's just that fact that, there's always just that thing where he's so ready to sacrifice them. And it just King likes to just tack that on at the end of things where it's like this joyous, like, we'll sacrifice ourselves for each other. And then Roland sort of whispers, I'll probably sacrifice you guys. So,
yeah,
we're all in this together until I'm going to let you die.
Yeah, the only thing he's certain of is that he will stand at that door.
Exactly.
Yeah. So any final thoughts? I know we did a couple of them at the end of the action there. I feel like I've said everything I need to say. I'm curious to know if there's anything that is left unsaid. Jeremy, on your side?
I want to bring one quick thing up. There was a question in the Slack a while back about where the name Susanna Dean came from, and we kind of glossed over it. But they do specifically mention that, like, Susanna was her middle name, so it wasn't just that somebody picked her. Like, she didn't just pick a name out at random. She's not like Rainbow Dean or anything like that. Like, that was her middle name. So it was kind of a conglomeration of what Detta's name and Odetta's name. So it's just not just pulled out of a hat anywhere.
Yeah, and it's said out loud. So it was Odetta Susanna Holmes taking her father's name, Detta Susanna Walker, her mother's name. And when you overlap those, only the middle name is the commonality. That is what they will take, because she is this kind of addition of both of them. Yeah. Or this superimposition of both of them. Yeah. Sean, how about you?
I think I have one small thing. I don't even think there's really an answer here, but I was curious, like the chapter name Roland takes his medicine. I looked up the phrase "take your medicine," and I guess it means to like willingly accept punishment. And I can't figure out what that has to do with what happens, because he's not really being punished. I don't. It's a small thing. I was wondering if King was just being cutesy, making a little reference, but I couldn't quite figure out what he was getting at with that chapter name.
It felt a little cutesy to me.
It just bugged me, because I was
it felt like a play on words, since he's literally like taking the medicine, like he's like he's stealing. He's not stealing it because he pays for it with the $6,500 Rolex. Right. That those three people are going to split amongst themselves somehow, because that totally happens. But I think it was just a play on words.
Yeah, because he's definitely the one dishing out the punishment. He's not but yeah, and in general, it's just because we're at the end here with, I couldn't have imagined at the end of the Gunslinger this being the sort of crazy, like, sort of like action-packed journey, through the world that it ended up being. And I just love how much fun this whole adventure through the drawing of the three was. And with absolutely no spoilers, it's crazy how much there's no way to anticipate what's about to happen in the Wastelands, because it just keeps dropping through these levels of like ridiculousness and like, challenging your expectations. So
yeah. There's a level of pervasive lightness in the drawing of the three that you don't see on the whole in any given book from this point on. Not to say that they are slogs or death marches or anything, but like this is definitely like at points this is a farcical caper,
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely like a heist movie, and Logan kind of hit upon some heist movie stuff with his Ocean's 11 plan to get some bullets, so I'm into it.
Yep. Cool. So that is the drawing of the three. Programming note: next episode we're going to be talking about the book Rose Matter, which has a tenuous Dark Tower connection, but something great about this project is that we can explore those connections and look at more Stephen King work. And the nice thing is Rose Matter came out a little bit before, or not a little bit before, around the time that The Wastelands came out, just like The Eyes of the Dragon came out around the time this one did. So go check that out. It's available in ebook. I think that there's an audiobook version available, although I've had trouble locating it. And then after that, we will begin The Wastelands in earnest. Jeremy, where can people find you?
The easiest place to find me is on Twitter at JG Greer. I do several podcasts. We've talked about Dark Souls a lot tonight, so if you guys are interested in Dark Souls, you can go to don'tgiveupskeleton.com, where I do interviews with people about the video game Dark Souls and how it changed their lives. Both Cole and Sean has been on the episodes by themselves, so we go look for their names in the list and hear them talk all about their experience with Dark Souls.
Yeah, it is a great idea for a podcast, and I really enjoy seeing the people that you're able to get. And also the surprises, like, people who I wasn't aware of, but have good stories nonetheless.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how often you and Gary get brought up, by the way. A majority of the stories I hear of, like, when I ask people, like, how did you get into the Dark Souls community? They say, well, we went to iTunes and typed in Dark Souls and Bonfireside Chat came up. And I was like, okay, cool. That's a good way to get to the community.
Man. So there are a lot of people who owe their livelihoods to search algorithms. That is the most common story that I hear is people finding us through that. Yeah, that's funny.
Guilty.
Yeah. Sean, where can people find you?
Following Jeremy's theme, you can find me on Twitter at the Lore Hunter, and I talk a lot about Dark Souls, but I do some general, video game stuff, and I have a few related things on YouTube and blogs, and you can find that all on my Twitter. So at the Lore Hunter. Yeah.
And you can find me at Cole Ross, KoleRoss, because my name is spelled weird. And we have more shows over at Duckfeed.tv. Thank you so much to both of you for being on the show. It has been a lot of fun talking about this very fun section of the book. To the listeners, if you want to tell your friends, get them hyped up for the Wastelands series, let them know that this is a good time to start going through and getting caught up. We really appreciate that. Also, lots of nice iTunes reviews have been coming through, which big thumbs up. Thank you. It's very much appreciated. All of that has been great. I love doing this show. I love talking with you all, and we will be back real soon. And until then, long days and pleasant nights.